Life. Our topic today is our newly launched Battery Passport, which is part of our product passport ecosystem. New EU regulations will soon improve the circular economy and also impact other aspects in this area. We would like to invite you to ask some questions and send us the questions in the comment section of the LinkedIn live event. But since I'm not an expert, I have Eike Hoffmann with me. Eike, what is your role, or what was your role, or is still your role? Maybe it has changed over the days and months. And when did you start in this project?
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me today. So I'm part of the development team around the Battery Passport as an AI expert. And I've been in the team since the very beginning. So when Matthias Böhmer started to gather people, I was one of the first to be there, and I'm very honored to be in this position.
Sounds pretty interesting. And what was the general idea of the Battery Passport?
So the core principle that we have is we want to digitalize the supply chain. I mean, it's first of all, it's driven by regulation, so which is not always really loved by everyone. But we wanted to see it as a chance. So see it as a chance to digitalize the supply chain, create business value, and reduce the costs that are in there. And furthermore, to do something good for society, also to put a little bit of a trigger into the circular economy.
So what is, maybe we go deeper into the story behind. What is the story behind?
So the ideas date back to 2022, 2021. And out of these ideas, we started the first conceptualization in 2022, designing the ideas, how the whole system should work, and then went into an agile development of the whole solution. And now we're in this phase that we have the concept, we have a prototype, and right now we're in a field testing phase with first customers to see what we already have achieved, how good it is, and where we need to have some additional improvements to make it really a tailored solution for our customers.
Are there some alignments with Catena X?
Yes, of course, we follow the standards of Catena X. I mean, Catena X is the upcoming standard in the automotive sector. And so we closely follow the standards there, and we'll prepare also the certification for Catena X soon.
Okay. And coming maybe to the unique features of the solution, what are the unique features?
I think the balance that we have between, on the one hand, the trust that we create by making the data visible. I mean, the Battery Passport is the regulation behind the Battery Passport requires to make a lot of data about the battery publicly visible. And not everyone wants to make that really publicly. So we need to find a balance between making it visible, but also keeping the data sovereignty of the manufacturers and the rest of the supply chain. And I think this two aspects that we balance here with our blockchain solution make it really unique. And therefore, in this way, we create a safe and trustworthiness ecosystem, which also has the nice feature of being scalable.
Okay, that sounds fantastic. Are there any other things that make our solution distinctive?
Well, the next thing that we have in mind is to create full transparency over the whole data, the live data that we see from the battery, but for the manufacturer. So we don't disclose everything, as I already mentioned, but we make sure that the battery manufacturer can track the individual batteries over the whole life cycle and see how the battery behaves in the field. Are there any unusual events occurring, something like that. And by that whole tracking of the data over the whole lifetime with the dynamic data, that is something which we think is really helpful for the further improvement of products and the R&D process.
And maybe the second life of parts of it, or maybe the whole
I mean,
thing.
also for if we think about second life, having those data in the back, we can also ensure that the one who uses the battery for the second life, I mean, that could be in another car, but could be in a really fixed storage solution, maybe refurbishing, maybe recycling, but depending on the state of the battery, different options might be better suitable. And if we have the live data, and the live data, we also track this in the blockchain. So we make sure there can't be any changes, so you can't manipulate also the live data that we received. So we can ensure that the state of the battery for the second life is really what it's should be and what was tracked.
Sounds really interesting. Is it already available? And maybe do you have a kind of demo to show us?
Thanks for asking. Thanks for asking. Let me give you a short introduction to how our solution looks like. So what we have here is the dashboard. So that's the perspective of the manufacturer who puts the different batteries into place. So on the upper part, we have what we call the blueprint section. That's the let's say the preparation stage where we make sure that all the data is collected and the supply chain is linked to the different assemblies and sub-assemblies of the product. And in the lower part, we see the in-field section, telling us more what we have currently in the field, the different series, and the products behind it. So, and at this point, I'd like to step out a bit and talk about the terminology we use here. So in the very beginning, we have templates, which define the structure of the product. And then next step after template is a so-called blueprint. And while the template defines the general structure, in the blueprint, we define then the specific values for a given product based on that structure that we get from the template. And a blueprint can then be released into a series, and the series bundles together the different individual products that we have to make it available for tracking and also for benchmarking different series. So, and what we see here in field, these are batteries that are already released, where we have individual batteries that are driving around in some cars. We can take a look at the data that is collected there, but also we have here on the right-hand side our alert feed, which highlights unusual behavior based on our AI solution that we have in the backend that constantly monitors and checks all the incoming data and compares that whether that matches the expected values or the expected behavior, or if there's unusual behavior. And if there's something that requires further attention, we can then take a look at the events occurring here. All right. If we take a deeper look at how a blueprint works, we have 7 different categories. We didn't come up with these categories on our own. So this is something which we get from the EU regulation, which requires some general information about who produced the battery and so on. And also, I think this is one of the most important things for the recycler, the refurbisher, or whoever wants to disassemble the battery at some point, the battery materials and composition. So knowing not only which materials are in there, but also in which quantity. And then with additional data from circularity and resource efficiency, you then have the complete picture how to get into this.
So we know each part
exactly
of the battery, where it comes from, when it was produced, and so on. And so
that's the part from the supply chain then that we also track that down. I mean, the EU regulation is very sophisticated in the terms that it requires a lot of data attributes. In total, it's 108 different attributes that need to be collected. We have it here as a user interface. But of course, this data is not typed in or handled manually. So we will get this data from different source system and basically collect it all here and make it visible for the one who finally makes the battery passport. Of course, not all of this data is available from the manufacturer itself. So that's why we have supply chain tracking, where we have the opportunity as a manufacturer to delegate information capturing to my suppliers. And this can be then, again, from supplier to supplier, tracked down individually for each assembly. If we go back to the dashboard, we also have the in-field section where we have all the different batteries that are in field and that are released, and we have individual really existing batteries behind it. And here we can see different products that are around there. We see that you can also take a look at the QR code that is printed on the battery and also take a look at the feedback. And again, we can check here the certificate that tells us we actually fulfill with these batteries the requirements of the EU. We fulfill the regulations, and the values have been checked. Plausibility. We do a plausibility check that makes sure that the values are matching. So that's the basic overview about our dashboard here.
I'm sure you could deep dive in for hours.
I can talk about it for hours for sure. I mean, we have so many cool features in there, but maybe are there any questions that
Let's have a look on the questions here. First question, regarding the different types and versions of a battery, how does Eviden ensure the customizability of different types of batteries?
I mean, it's a very complex thing, though. That's why we have this so-called template structure that I mentioned previously, where I define the structure. And depending on the battery, we can have completely different templates. And also, if you take a look at the upper part, it says product passport ecosystem. So a battery is one specific example, but we could do it for any product. So that's the cool flexibility that is given to us by this template functionality, that we can model basically every product in arbitrary depth, depending on what the requirements of our customers are.
Okay, the second question is, how does our solution fit into the Catena X ecosystem?
So, as I mentioned, Catena X is a very important upcoming standard for the automotive system. And so we closely followed what Catena X gives as guidelines. Catena X is also part of the Gaia X ecosystem. And therefore, we have this Eclipse data connector that builds a unified solution how data is exchanged in the whole ecosystem. And we've built on this Eclipse data connector, which also gives then, for example, suppliers the opportunity to insert the data into our solution based on the EDC. They can do it with the EDC, but in case they're not already Catena X ready, we also provide APIs. Or as a fallback solution, we always have a user interface for manual data entering. But that's, of course, the fallback solution if we don't aim at this.
Would be a lot of work.
Yeah.
Okay, question number 3, regarding the connectivity to the existing IT infrastructure landscape, how does the Battery Passport platform can integrate into the current landscape of an enterprise, and what gateways are implemented to achieve that?
Well, we know that our customers have quite different heterogeneous IT landscapes, but with a trend to move into the cloud, we build our solution to be cloud ready, but also hyperscaler agnostic. So we don't say, okay, it's only available on AWS, Azure, Google, or you name it. Can run on anything. So I think this makes it very flexible in the beginning. Furthermore, we provide connectors to the different systems that we see in our customers' IT landscapes, so that we connect the data from there, we get the data from there, and then basically collect it all, capture it, make it in a unified view, and then, for example, you could cross-check it again based on the UI, or get some plausibility checks from our AI system that tells whether the whole data makes a complete overview and makes sense together.
Sounds good. And I see with the questions we have experts here in the audience. Okay, so the next question, how do you avoid collecting the same data multiple times in different systems, e.g. PLM, ERP, and so on?
So we don't say, okay, our solution is the one and only, and this is where all the data is the, so we are not the, basically, we're a system that collects the data. We're collecting the data from the original systems and make it in a one view. And therefore we make sure that it needs to be entered all over again, or it's duplicated. So we are a follow system, our system follows the data. And also if you have it in the blockchain, we only make sure that there are references in there, so the data is set in stone, but it's not, how should I say, you can't change it anymore. But still, due to the data sovereignty, it still stays in the domain of the manufacturer.
Okay, what are your ideas to boost the second battery market after the battery life in a vehicle?
I think that this is a very, very visionary question here. So we do have some ideas, which could be like making it a marketplace. So I mean, as you really know the state of the battery, and it's guaranteed that the state of the battery is really what it is, you could think about a market system where different second life options compete with each other. That's something we could think of.
Okay, and then we have a question. How might the concept of a battery passport be applied in various industries or sectors? What are the essential criteria or necessary requirements to develop a product passport for another product? So maybe someone in the audience from other industries.
So yeah, I mean, we have it as a product passport ecosystem. So again, we have with this template that I mentioned previously, we can model any product, depending on like the complexity. It can be a huger template, can be also a quite lean template, depending on what is the manufacturing depth of our customer. If the manufacturing depth is not that high, we can then easily go into the supply chain and link it to the supply chain. Well, that's perfectly customizable.
And another technical question, I'd say, how does Battery Passport align with the principles of Web3, especially in terms of decentralization and user-centric frameworks?
So in our block, I mean, this refers to our blockchain solution that we have in the back end. Again, we have this to make this balance between, okay, it's the data is publicly visible, but on the other hand, we don't want to have this IP drain in the drain of intellectual property. And to fulfill this, we have a decentralized database. The data resides in the sovereignty and the domain of the manufacturer, and we make only the reference is basically publicly available and linked to that in the blockchain. But in this blockchain, we also capture a fingerprint of the data. So in case there is any change, we only can add to the blockchain entry. And that's how we create basically the trust in the system. If once data is entered at some point, it can't be changed. You can always say, okay, well, I'm sorry, I did a little mistake here. Please, here, this is the correction to it. But it will always, trustworthy that there haven't been any changes in the back in the end.
Thank you, Eike. So you showed us a demo. You told us you've already did some testing. What about our audience? Could you go to them and say, okay, hey, we are open for some trials with you?
More than happy to do so. So we invite all our customers to engage with us and do a pilot with us to see how the system can be adapted to their needs and make sure they also can fulfill requirements or regulations that are not there yet. I mean, battery is one example that we have a concrete upcoming regulation, but we see that in the EU, a general product passport is on the horizon, and a lot of products will need some product passports, and that's something we can support with to make compliant product passports for our customers.
Okay, so this is to you, our audience, to get in contact with us and start to use the product, to do the even more testing, maybe some adjustments and improvements. Eike, thank you very much for this very in-depth and for me very technical demonstration and insights. I hope you enjoyed it. And whenever you have questions, come to us. And all the questions we couldn't answer during the session, we will come to you after the session. Thank you very much. Goodbye and have a great day.
Thank you. Goodbye.